Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.
This is a public hearing of the Finance Subcommittee, and the first one we have this evening is C-79, Dean J. Mazzarella Mayor, requests the fiscal year 2023 budget, which totals $150,624,467 be adopted. $150,416,047 is to be raised by fiscal year 2023 revenues. $133,000 is to be transferred from the Gallagher Building Special Revenue Fund, and the remaining portion of $75,420 is to be transferred from the Cemetery Trust Fund. Finance Subcommittee met previously on this last Tuesday and Thursday. And I will start with a little bit of housekeeping. I know there's various members of the council that have to abstain from portions of it. I'll start with Councilor Shalafo. You're okay on this, but not the water and sewer, right?
That is correct, Councilor.
Okay, all right. And Councilor Deacon?
Everything other than school issues, I'll be abstaining from.
Okay, we understand that. And Councilor David Cormier, Council President?
Yes, thank you very much. I will be abstaining from Fire Department. I have a family member in the department. And also, I will be abstaining from all of the line items in the budget for the Disability Commission. I serve on the commission, and I am the treasurer of the commission as well, so I do need to stay away from those items.
All right, if the city clerk will so note those abstentions. Is there anybody else? Okay. We'll start with members of the Finance Committee, starting with Councilor Pauline Cormier. Do you have anything at this juncture?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Angelini?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any member of the council that wants to weigh in with a comment or question at this juncture? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to the public. Is there any member of the public in favor of the budget, C-79, that wishes to address the council? A second time, is there any member of the public that is opposed to the budget or some portion of it that wants to address the city council? A third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council in opposition to the budget? Seeing none, is there any member of the public that wants to speak in favor of the budget? A second time, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak in favor of the budget? And a third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak in favor of the budget? Councilor Frieder, I see that you're just coming in. I have polled all of the council. Nobody had a question. Are you okay? All right. Thank you very much. That being said, unless anybody has anything further, I am going to close the public hearing. All right. And we will resume at 6:15 PM with a public hearing on C80, which is the Water Department budget. C80, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests a total appropriation of $6,499,451 be made to the fiscal year '23 Water Department budget. The same amount to be raised, offset by fiscal '23 receipts as authorized by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E. And I think I noted previously that Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, you're going to abstain from this portion of the budget?
Yes, correct, Counselor.
Thank you. Anybody else has to weigh in there? Okay. With that out of the way, I will now turn to members of my committee for any questions or comments, starting with Pauline Cormier.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Councilor Angelini?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm fine. I think Mr. Jacob Fleming did a good job the other night, and the budget that was submitted reflected all those numbers pretty accurately.
Great.
Satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there any member of the is there any other member of the council that would like to weigh in with a question or comment concerning the Water Department budget proposed? Okay, seeing none, I'll open this up to the public. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address us relative to C80, which is the Water Department budget? And a second time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council relative to C80, the Water Department budget? And a third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council relative to the fiscal '23 Water Department budget? Seeing none, I will declare the public hearing on C80 closed, and we will take up the public hearing on C81, which is the proposed fiscal '23 sewer department budget, at 6:30 PM.
So now it's 6, 7, see, 3 minutes.
I'm going to call to order the public hearing on C81, scheduled for 6:30 PM. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests a total appropriation of $6,538,048 be made to the fiscal year '23 sewer department budget, the same amount to be raised/offset by fiscal year '23 receipts, as authorized by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E. Just quickly check, is there any member of the council that needs to abstain themselves from this budget? Seeing none, I'll proceed first with members of my own committee. Councilor Pauline Cormier?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Councilor Angelini?
I'm fine with it as well, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Angelini. Is any other member of the council have a question or concern? I saw Councilor Shalfo-Zephyrs' hand first.
I am abstaining from this.
Oh, okay.
Counselor, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Then I saw Councilor Brady's hand.
Yeah, just in reviewing it, there's a line item under banking services. Last year's budget was $29,736. It increased to $102,550. I was wondering if we could ask why. I missed asking that question
Jen
last
is
week.
here. Is Jen
is here. Jen, could I ask you? Page 133. Yeah, sewer department. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the bottom. Under banking services.
Joe, I'm wondering if that's for the new debt that they're gonna have, but that would probably be under the debt service. So I don't know why that went up quite so much. Oh, it says bond administration. That's why. It's because the bond that they're planning on doing next year.
Oh, okay, planning for the bond upcoming.
Exactly.
Perfect,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah, as I recall, I think it costs about $100,000 to place a bond. So that would be consistent with what you're looking at there.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you, Councilor Brady. Any other member of the council have a question? Okay, I'll open it up to the general public. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council on C81, the sewer department proposed budget? And a second time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the council relative to C81, the sewer department budget? And a third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council relative to the fiscal '23 sewer department budget? Seeing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Next hearing will be at 6:45 and involves the Public Safety Committee. Public Service.
public hearing for public service, of which I will be recusing myself. The matter does involve my employer. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing tonight on petition 55-22 before the Public Service Committee. I'm the chair of the Public Service Committee. Councilor Frida is on the committee, as well as Councilor Bill Brady. And I'll read petition 55-22. Verizon New England, Inc. requests permission to locate poles, wires, cables, and fixtures, including the necessary anchors, guys, and other sustaining and protecting fixtures to be owned and used in common by your petitioners along and across the following public way or ways. Merriam Avenue, place 1 solely owned pole numbered T.104S on the east side of Merriam Avenue at a point approximately 163 feet northerly from the center line of Shadow Lawn Drive. Reason, place 1 solely owned pole on Merriam Avenue at the request of an abutter to remove a trespass and to provide for the distribution of intelligence and telecommunications. Wherefore they pray that after due notice and hearing is provided by law, they be granted joint or identical locations for and permission to erect and maintain poles, wires, and cables, together with anchors, guys, and other such sustaining and protecting fixtures as they may find necessary. Said poles to be erected substantially in accordance with the plan filed herein, marked Verizon number 1A5F8DP, dated February 16th, 2022. Also for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the above or intersecting public ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings as each of said petitioners may desire for distributing purposes. Your petitioners agree to reserve space for 1 cross arm at a suitable point on each of said poles for the fire and police, telephone and telegraph signal wires belonging to the municipality and used by it exclusively for municipal purposes. So that is what is before us tonight. Is there anybody here from Verizon that would like to speak on behalf of this petition? Nobody from Verizon. Okay, well, that presents a problem. I'm sorry? Is there anybody, let me go to my committee. I'll go to the committee first, I guess, and then we'll go to the general public. Councilor Frida, do you have any questions? It's really hard to discuss without Verizon being here because I know myself, I had several questions.
I have a couple questions regarding the abutters, but, I'll defer to let them
Okay,
speak first.
yep, absolutely. Councilor Brady.
The same, there is a lot of questions.
Right. Yep.
Some of the plans and things, and I don't want to speak for Verizon, but I would be interested to hear what the public would say.
Yep. Is there anybody else, is there any counselor who would like to speak or ask a question on 55-22 before we invite the general public? Councilor Angelini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, too, have several questions, and obviously a bit uncomfortable without the Verizon representative here this evening. So hopefully we have the opportunity to ask those questions at some point in the future.
Absolutely, thank you. I do see members of the public, and is there anybody who would like to speak to the council on that petition? Absolutely. Would you please, you can go over here, ma'am, and just give us your name and address for the record, please. Yeah. Right over here.
Oh.
At the podium, yes, sorry.
All right. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Susan Naylor. Oh, no. Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Susan Naylor, and I live at 438 Lindell Avenue in Leominster, which is at the corner of Lindell and Merriam. And since the work was done on the corner of Merriam and Lindell, all the new sidewalks and lights and poles, et cetera. And during the work period, my property was used as Verizon's National Grid and the Department of Transportation, DOT, as their personal parking lot. They parked all over my lawn. said that they were going to fix everything, repair it, put it back to what it was before. And I said, okay, great. When the work was completed, I noticed they had taken down a number of trees, a lot of debris, et cetera, and they left it all over my lawn. And they said that they would come back and fix it. They also put a telephone pole with a wire, I don't know what it's called, guide. It was a pole here and then a long wire, and that was on my property. The pole on my property and this wire. And it actually went fairly deep into my property. And I had been planning to put a fence up on my property because of the traffic on Merriam Avenue. I was hoping that when I put the fence up, it would cut down on the noise and frankly cut down on, when I'm in the yard working, on the hooting and hollering from the passing cars. Nobody asked me if they could put the pole up, and the pole interfered with exactly where the fence was supposed to go. If the fence, say it was put up, it would have been between the pole and the guide wire, like underneath, which I thought was ridiculous, number one. But even more importantly, I felt that when they said, well, just put your fence behind it at one point, and if I had done that, I would have lost about 8 to 10 feet of my property, thereby reducing what I have to work with behind the fence line that was supposed to be put up. And I really have a problem with that. I really don't think it's fair. I pay taxes on all of that property, and they're telling me what to do about it. So I tried for many months, and it went into many years, for them to come and clean up my property of all the debris that they left, and to try and get somebody to remove the pole. I did get in touch with a Mike Hartnett from the Department of Transportation, who has been very kind to me and did arrange for all the debris to be removed, and he's working with me to replace the damage that was done to my yard. As far as the pole is concerned, he said, yeah, that's ridiculous because the property was surveyed, and the pole is definitely on my property. So he said that he would contact National Grid. Let me just mention that Verizon was never mentioned until about 3 months ago. It was always National Grid, because Mike Hartnett asked me to walk over to the pole and read him the numbers off of it, which I did. And he said, okay, I will handle this, because they had no right to put it there without talking with you. So I waited and waited. Long story short, he dropped the ball completely. And after about 5 or 6 months, I took it upon myself and tracked down National Grid. And I was put in touch with a woman, doesn't matter her name, with a woman who said that she would look into it and get back to me. And she did get back to me after about 3 weeks and said, the pole is not on your property. It's not at all on your property. I have Google Maps showing me that the pole is not on your property. And I went, ma'am, I'm looking here at the pole and this wire, and I'm looking at the survey poles that they put in, and it's behind my poles. Anyways, back and forth, up and down, left and right. She got very rude, very indignant. I insisted. I said, this is wrong. I am not putting a fence and losing all of this property. So she finally relented, and while I was out of town, she texted me and said that we've removed the pole. And I went, thank you, great. Now I can have the fence company put the fence in. So I came home I was gone, and I walked outside, and I looked in my yard, and there's the pole with the guide wire. So I texted her and very strongly said, hello, Kim, this is, I said, I don't know what you're talking about, but I am looking at the pole. And she got so off the wall. She said, you're whatever. She said, we had that pole removed, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I came back at her and said, no, I'm looking at it. I can take a picture. And she said, well, I can't deal with you anymore. I'm turning you over to my supervisor. So we hung up, and he called me the next day, and his name is Scott from National Grid. And he said, you know, I've looked at all the maps, I've looked at everything, and we removed the pole. And I went, I really think you need to come out here, because I am looking at the pole, and I realize that I'm 75 years old, but I am not. I am looking at the pole. And he said, okay. I said, I want you out here today, this afternoon, please. So he did come out with another man, and we walked out my front door, and my front door faces the field across the way, Doyle Field, yeah. And he said, okay, let me show you. We took the pole down. So we started out my front door, started to walk across the street, walk across Lindell, and I'm going, and we got across the street, and he said, look, it was just past the light. And I said, Scott, what are you talking about? Where are you taking me? And he said, I'm showing you that we removed the pole from your property. And I said, well, I wish I did own this property, but this is not my property. And he was very indignant, and I said, please, come back across the street with me, come around the corner, and I will walk you. You can touch the pole. And he finally realized what they had done. He said, oh my God, he said, we took down the wrong pole. We had Google Maps. This was on, looks like it's on your property. And I went, there's a street between me and across the field. So he said, oh, he said, well, we can't do much about this. All we can do is take the top wires. This pole that on my property has wires that go across the street to a pole that is in front of my neighbor's house. And I've forgotten, I don't know the number of your house.
That's right, I'll get up and talk.
Okay, you'll talk. So he said, all we can do is take the top wires off. He said, because Verizon owns the pole. And I said, it's now April of 2022, and this is the first I've heard that Verizon owns this pole since 2013, that you have been giving me the runaround and telling me I'm crazy, and that just it doesn't matter if I lose, just work with the land that you'll be left. And he said, well, we'll have to get in touch with Verizon. And of course, that took a long time. And they again said, what difference does it make? Just put the fence behind. And I said, I don't really think it's fair. I said, and you have, been rude and indignant. And so 2 weeks ago, maybe 10 days ago, they finally showed up and removed the pole and the guide wire and told me, well, we've done it, but we're going to be able to put it back.
Ma'am, excuse me, Mrs. Naylor, just a second. Counselor Shalfo Zephyr, it is 7 o'clock.
Right, we have to start our
and
meeting.
We'll have to start our meeting. So, Ms. Naylor, if you would just hold on just a couple minutes.
Of course.
We'll come right back.
Of course. Can I sit down or stay here? Or?
Just sit right behind you there.
Right, okay.
Be just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Leominster City Council for May 23rd, 2022. Will you all please stand and join me for a salute to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm now going to take a roll call of the honorable members of the Leominster City Council, beginning with Councilor Bedanza.
Present.
Councilor Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Arndinger.
Present.
Councilor Angelini.
Present.
Councilor Brady.
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Present.
Councilor Deacon.
Present.
Councilor Frida.
Present.
And I am present. All members are present this evening. Does the Vice President have any records to approve this evening?
I do, Mr. President. I have reviewed the records from May 9th, 2022. I find them to be in good order, and I ask that they be placed on file.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of the Vice President to place the minutes of May 9th, 2022 on file. If there's no objections, they will be placed on file. And at this time, I'd like to ask for a motion for a recess. Councilor Bedanza, and then I saw Councilor Ardinger's hand next. All those in favor of going into recess so we can continue with the public hearings, signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, we are now in recess. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yep.
Counselor Shalfo Zephyr, you may continue.
Thank you. Councilor Cormier. Ms. Naylor, do you want to finish telling us your story, and then we can hear from other abutters as well?
Okay.
Thank you.
Actually, I did complete most of it. To wrap up, I just, nobody there asked me if they could put a pole. They just went ahead and did it. And I will not lose 8 to 10 feet of my property that I'm paying taxes on and that I would like use of, because I do love to garden and I love to work in the yard. And so I really do not want that pole put back. I did suggest a couple of options to them of putting it farther down or underground, but they were pretty rude to me, and I'm actually surprised that they didn't show up. I think they really feel that it'll just get pushed through, and the heck with me. So, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. Is there anybody else from the public who'd like to speak about this issue? Yep. Would you please give your name and address, sir?
Yeah, good evening. My name is John Fratarelli.
Okay.
I live at 660 Merriam Avenue. I moved into that address in 2014, and I just want to vouch for what Susan was saying. There was quite a bit of debris in her yard, and it's taken her all this time to get it cleaned up to the point where, it looks decent again. I was thrilled when they took that pole down across the street because, like she said, that pole had a supporting anchor tied to the telephone pole in front of my house.
Right.
Right. So now when I got this letter, I'm thinking, okay, where they're going to, it's, they're saying in the same or near the same location, so I'm thinking they're going to come back up on the same side of the street, put the pole back here, and they're going to tie it back into that pole again. So I guess I wanted to just express my displeasure with the fact that they're going to put the pole back up and make the same connection again, as opposed to maybe running the cables underground. I mean, this is we are living in modern times now. Those poles are hideous to begin with. But I understand, the cost and all that involved. So, but I think it's very unfair to my neighbor if they're going to go back and put the pole in the same place. Again, why should she have to sacrifice her property, just for them to put a telephone pole up when they can probably relocate it somewhere else on the same side of the street and maybe run a longer cable if they have to do that. So, and I am surprised they're not here tonight. So,
Thank you.
but that's all I had to say.
All righty. Thank you very much, Mr. Fratarelli.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dawn Hunt, and I live at 668 Merriam Ave, so it's corner of Lindell and Merriam, very, very busy, busy area. It's a beautiful old historic building I purchased a couple years ago, and I absolutely love it. There is a huge problem with traffic, et cetera, and I recently met with Mr. Angelini and the judge to talk about certain things. But I have put a lot of money into that house already. And it's a beautiful 130-year-old home, and I am concerned about the pole. I'm concerned about, my property is basically right there in the road. I was just planning on putting a huge, a $7,000 bed, garden bed, with some abrevieties, et cetera, just for noise reduction and for aesthetic purposes. And when I got this letter, I was quite surprised, and I would have loved to have seen their proposal instead of reading all these numbers and you know, where it's going to go. I have no idea where is 163 feet, north, west, east, west. I have no idea. So I would have loved to have spoke to the Verizon people, but again, I'm a little disheartened that they didn't come. They probably thought it was a pass. They will put it up there. And I agree with these two, my neighbors, about putting underground utilities. Verizon, the cost, I'm not concerned about the cost. I'm concerned, really, they have money, they can do it, put on underground utilities. There's a lot going on at that corner. Right.
It's the worst corner in the city, the police told me.
Absolutely, and I appreciate, I've seen undercover police across the street. Thank you so much. I've noticed a little bit of, change, so the presence is huge, and I appreciate that. But if they ask me my permission, I'm going to say no. That's about it. Easy peasy. No, you can't do anything on my property. You don't have my permission to park, put, destroy. That's it. So maybe if there's another meeting that they do graciously, attend, we can have a discussion about it. But that's how I feel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. May I say a couple other sentences?
Certainly.
I would just like to say that when I spoke with them, one thing they were saying is that the pole that they did end up removing was somewhat supportive. Let me see if I can get this correctly. Yes, that the pole that they actually removed was somewhat supportive of the pole across the street that is in front of John's property, because they were behind, he said, in the schedule on the corner, and they put that pole up, and this man said haphazardly. So they needed the pole on my property to support it, which I found quite alarming. So when they did finally come out to acknowledge me and talk with me, he said, I did mention to them, I said, and he said, well, our engineers are going to look into it. And I said, well, then you need to look at the pole across the street that you said was needed support, because you put too many wires on it.
Okay.
So again, to support what John and Dawn said, I find it unfortunate and actually rude that they did not appear tonight.
Well, honestly, as the chairperson of this committee, I'm stunned that they didn't show, because they have a lot of business that comes before the city council, both Verizon and National Grid. So they're down here all the time, periodically. So, and in the past, when we've had problems with them in the way that they've conducted business, we've let them know that, and we expect that they will treat, all of the residents in the city of Leominster with respect, and, that they're courteous and they get the job done the way that they're supposed to. There are a number of problems, because the plan that we have from Verizon, it's dated February of this year, February of 2022, on it shows the pole that I'm imagining is the one that used to be across from Mr. Ferdarelli's property, because that's the way it looks like it's drawn on the plan. It's not there anymore, so when I went to look at it, I know other councils went to look at the situation to try to figure out, okay, which pole are they talking about? It's just not there, so it's very confusing. So the plan that we actually have before us doesn't reflect what's actually on the ground at the moment. So there are a number of problems that we have, so we will go back to Verizon. This is going nowhere because the plan doesn't match. It was also referred to our DPW, the Department of Public Works. They asked Verizon for a plan and did not receive one as well, so we're waiting for our DPW to get back. So at the moment, we will go back to Verizon and tell them, our concerns, all of the issues, various issues that you raised, and we'll ask them for a plan that actually reflects what's going on. The question that I had, there were a couple of questions besides what was on the plan and not on the plan. Were you I don't know who the petitioner is. Is it you, Ms. Naylor, that petitioned? Because they're talking about a petitioner, they're talking about a butter who asked to have this done. So it must...
I asked them to remove the pole
on the corner
since 2013.
Are you talking about the pole on the corner of Merriam and Lindell, or are you talking about the one that was further down on your property on Merriam?
Yes, ma'am. It
That
was
one,
further
okay.
down.
Okay.
The one that you mentioned,
Yep.
and I wasn't even going to bring it up, but that pole on the corner, here's Lindell and Merriam, and that pole sits sort of catty corner
It does, yep.
there, and it is on my property, but quite frankly, I just can only fight so much, and this pole is nowhere near the fence that is going to be put in hopefully next week. It was the pole that was down
On Merriam. Okay.
that I wanted removed, and we did talking about that pole also, but when I mentioned the pole that they said they haphazardly put up and put too much weight on it, that is the pole that was across from the pole that was down, which is actually, that pole is right in front of John's home.
Okay.
And that should be dealt with also.
Okay.
Because if that falls on his house or in the street, that's not going to be pretty.
Okay. No, that's helpful. So, Council Frida, do you have any questions?
Do we know what the purpose of moving the pole to begin with? Why the request is put in by the abutter? Do we know that?
I think she just explained it, that it was
Yes.
too far in on her property and took away 8 feet of her property, and she wanted to have a fence. So is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I could not put a fence in where I wanted it because the pole was
too
on
far
my
back.
property.
It was too far into your property.
Yes, that's too far in.
Yep.
Okay, no, I don't have any more questions
Okay.
right at the moment.
All right. Council Brady?
One point you brought up is the pole that's still there on your property. Was that erected after you were there? Did you give them permission to erect that pole?
Are you talking about the pole that's on the corner of Merriam and Lindell?
Yes, the existing one. The one
I have
that's there.
never given Verizon, the DOT, or National Grid permission to put pole on my property.
Oh, and when you were speaking, you said they were using your land as a parking lot.
Yes, I have pictures.
Had you given them permission,
No.
or did they just?
No, I walked out one morning when they started the work on the corner of Merriam and Lindell, and there was a number of, I lost the word, construction trucks parked, like my 438 Lindell is here, and my driveway is here, and they pulled up from my driveway into a bed that I had and took out a lot of landscaping, and then there's a bed. It was pretty. It is better now. There's a bed here, driveway's here, bed here, some lawn and another bed, and they would pull up and park on that lawn. And then they parked down Merriam Avenue they drove up onto my lawn. And then when they took down all, 3 trees. They took down 1 on my property, and then either 2 or 3 across the street from Doyle Field. And they brought all of the cut-up chunks and wood and put it down on, here's Merriam Avenue. So here's the end of my property in this corner here. I don't know if anybody remembers, but that whole corner way up was filled with debris from the work and the trees, et cetera. And it took me from 2013 to 2019 to get them to come and remove it. And I actually had spent almost $6,000 to remove it, but there was a lot left, and so
All right.
it was a huge problem for me.
No, it certainly sounds like it.
I think when Verizon gets here,
Right, we'll figure it
we'll
out.
have some explaining to do.
Did I
They
answer
certainly
your
do.
question, Councilman Brady? Okay, thank you.
Councilor Angelini.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to explain to the folks that spoke this evening, the confusion, I think, at least
Me.
speak for myself, and I think the at-large council as well, is the plan that we were given
Yeah.
shows a pole there. It says existing pole.
yeah.
And when we rode by, there was no pole there.
Are you,
So-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so in other words, they're showing the pole that used to be there as being there still, and they're showing a location where they propose to move the pole, which is closer to the street. It won't be on your property, it would be closer to the street, but from what they provided us. Now, they did say that they're doing this to remedy a trespass. So
Okay.
it sounds like they're admitting that the original pole was on your property.
Oh, yeah, both poles, the one on the corner and the one down Merriam.
Yeah,
were-
so with the one that was halfway, the one that went over across to Mr. Frattarelli's property, that one is the one that they show is still being there.
Okay,
So,
yes.
yeah,
Well, the one that's on my property is still there. The one they took out, if they're going to put it back in the same location, and they said they're going to take it off, they're going to end up putting it right in the middle of the sidewalk.
Right. Which I don't think,
Right.
yeah, no, that's why it's very confusing.
It's-
Obviously,
It is.
we could have certainly had some, like to pose some questions to the representative from Verizon.
yes.
So
right.
Right.
I suspect the chair will make that happen.
So if you come up Merriman Avenue, and you find my house, which is 660, you'll see the telephone pole.
Yep, right there.
Just look across the street.
Yep.
That's where it was,
Right.
right on her property.
That's why, I can't tell you how many times I went there because that's what I was looking for and the pole isn't there.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I asked somebody else, I asked other people to take a ride by because I thought, okay, what am I missing? But it's not there. It's there on their plan, but it's gone.
They just removed it, I think about 10 days ago.
Okay. All right, well, that's good to know. So at this point, do any other councils have any questions that they'd like to ask the abutters? Council Bedanza.
Did I just hear that the pole has just been removed 10
Yes.
days ago?
Yes.
Well, that explains a lot. That might explain why the February plan shows the pole to be removed, because the pole was still there back in February.
Yep.
Yes.
So this plan, as the chair acknowledged, is dated February 16th, 2022. So it's behind the times.
Right.
So that's why, if the pole just got removed, that's why it's on the February plan. So their plan, they can answer for this when they show up, was in February, is to take that pole out and move it into the easement, which is not your property, which probably is in the middle of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions I'm sure the
There's a
council will
ton.
have
Absolutely.
when they come. But that explains why the plan is depicted the way it is.
I actually would really appreciate if they would come out and show us. I mean, the lateral and longitude, and 100 and whatever, I mean, I can count 163, whatever, but I think they should come out to the property and go over it with us.
But why don't we?
Madam Chair,
Suggestion? I was just suggest to the chair, when you contact them, if you could ask them to paint it on where they plan to put this pole, so that butters can see what their plan is?
I'd like to see it as well, and I'm
Yeah,
sure that other
yeah.
people on the council and the committee would definitely want to see that, along with a new plan.
Yeah.
Council Frida?
Yeah, my suggestion as a member of the committee would be to have Verizon in here.
Oh,
I mean, we
absolutely.
need to hear from them. This is,
No,
this is not the first time they don't show up when we have a hearing. It's not the first time that we have conflicting plans. This has been an ongoing problem with these. And, I mean, we can't do anything about private property, but we can certainly do something about public property.
And the requests that these companies make,
Right.
both Verizon and National Grid. No, there's no question
So
about it.
I would suggest giving this further time or tabling it until they come in and tell us what's going on. I mean, the public has a right to hear as well what the plan is.
Absolutely, as we all do. You know, if we're going to pass this, we need to know exactly what it is that they're proposing. Sir?
Will we get notified of another meeting if they show up?
Yes, you will.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, Ms. Naylor?
May I suggest that when you contact them, that you also discuss the pole that's on Mr. Fratarelli's property? Because they did tell me that they overloaded it, which is why they needed the pole across the street.
All right. Safety, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, safety,
Public safety concern.
You have a representative with you
Yeah.
from the city.
right?
Well, the DPW has also been asked to weigh in on
Oh,
whatever plan they submit. So we will definitely have, you know, engineers and people who understand
And-
construction more than I do, certainly,
okay.
represented.
Great, and you'll keep us in the loop, please?
Absolutely, yep.
Thank you.
Yes, we will. All right. If there are no other questions, no other comments, you're all set? You guys all set? All right. Then I propose that, I'll do a little committee work. Councilor Frida, I would propose to keep the public hearing open, give this further time, request that Verizon come down with a revised plan that they also submit to the DPW.
I'll reach out to them again.
Thank you. Councilor Brady, you okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely, and perhaps when we talk to them, we can ask for an explanation why she had to wait 7 years to get her property cleaned up.
Absolutely. Yeah, that could be a DOT question, too.
Almost 9 years.
Almost 9, sorry.
All right. Okay.
All right.
So we're going to keep the
Public hearing open.
public hearing open. Do we need to schedule another date on the public hearing? Should we do that now or when it comes up on the agenda?
You have a date?
I have, I was looking at the date today.
We can do it now.
June 13th at 6:44 PM.
What's the date again?
June 13th.
June 13th at 6:44
May I ask
PM.
what day that is?
It's a Monday.
A Monday, good.
A Monday.
All right.
Okay.
And is that just a show of hands? Okay. So the action on the floor is to keep the public hearing open and to schedule a further public hearing date on 6/13/2022 at 6:44 PM. All those in favor, please signify in the usual manner. Any opposed? I'm sorry, Council Frida? You were in favor of, thank
I
you.
raised my hand.
And by a vote of 8-0, the public hearing has been continued to 6/13/22 at 6:44 PM. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we now have a 6:50
Thank you
PM
for your time.
public hearing for legal affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I'm sorry. This is a public hearing of the Legal Affairs Committee. My name is Peter Angelini, Chair. I'm joined by the other two members of Legal Affairs, the second member, Councilor Mark Bedanza, and the third member, Councilor Pauline Cormier. As I think you're all aware, this is Elizabeth Wood, our planning director, asking us to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to parking of unregistered vehicles or overflow lots, I think as they're sometimes referred to. If I may, I'm in receipt of a letter, I think I'll begin this If I could read this letter into the record, it's dated May 17th, 2022, regarding petition 20-22 overflow lots. Attention, City Council. On 5/16/22, the Planning Board voted 7-0 to continue the public hearing for petition 20-22, RE, zoning amendment, RE overflow lots, to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to the parking of unregistered vehicles to 6/20/2022 at 6:30. The board and subcommittee are continuing to finalize a proposed draft ordinance language. Once the board has agreed upon language and closed the hearing, I will provide you with further correspondence, including the exact language that is recommended. This will be after the 6/20/22 hearing date. Regards, Elizabeth Wood, Planning Director. First hearing, public hearing we had on this was January 10th. So this has been kicking around for quite a while. I suspect since the subcommittee that the planning board formed with one of the folks who'll be impacted, I guess, if this is adopted, still continuing to meet. So the legal advertising for this is obviously getting rather stale. It would be my recommendation that we table this matter, and when they finally figure out how they want to proceed, and the planning board gets the language that they want, they vote on it, it's all wrapped up, bow on it, they send it back down to us, and we can take it off the table. But I'd like to check with other members of my committee and see what their feelings are. Councilor Bedanza.
I'm in favor of tabling it.
Councilor Cormier?
I would agree as well. Table it.
Any members of the council? How about the public? Let me go to the public. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 20-22? For the second time, is there anyone here this evening who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 20-22? For the third and final time, is there anyone here this evening who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 20-22? Hearing none, I'll declare the public hearing closed.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We are now going to hold a public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on any matter listed specifically on the City Council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address, along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. The council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. At this point, we do not have anybody that signed up. So I will ask, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak at the public forum? If so, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Once again, would anybody in the audience like to speak at the public forum? And for the third and final time, would anybody in the audience like to speak at the public forum? Seeing none, I declare the public forum closed. We are now back in session, and we will move right into communications from the mayor, beginning with C-82, Madam Clerk.
C-82, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $250,000 be made to the municipal building maintenance account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account, regarding completion of copper troughs and gutter system on City Hall.
And C-82 will be referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the agenda, regular course, please.
C-82 has been given regular course. C-83.
C-83, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $14,000 be made to the highway equipment expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account, regarding purchase of a utility gator.
And C-83 will also be referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Again, first time on the calendar, regular course, please.
C-83 has been given regular course. C-84.
C-84, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the following ordinance change be adopted. Amend Chapter 16, Personnel, Section 16-30, Compensation Grades by inserting therein the following sections for fiscal year 2022 through fiscal year 2024 as follows. And then there's some beautiful charts that update all the salaries that I don't plan to read, but if you would like to see them, they are available at the city clerk's office at request.
Okay, C-84 is going to be referred to the Chairman of Legal Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the
That's
calendar.
Legal Affairs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're a little out of order, I apologize.
That's okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the calendar, regular course, please.
Okay, C-84 has been given
And may I schedule a public hearing?
regular course with a public hearing, Mr. Chairman, of, is it June 13th, 2022 at 6:45 PM? Okay. All right, all those in favor of scheduling the public hearing, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed? Okay, for a vote of 9-0, C-84 has been given regular course with a public hearing of June 13th, 2022 at 6:45 PM.
I'm sorry, just a
Councilor
quick
Brady?
question. This is non-union, so the salary study that's ongoing now won't affect this?
This is just a cost of living adjustment that they do every 3 years.
Thank you.
Okay. C-85, Madam Clerk? Oh, Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr?
Okay, the hearing for 55, petition 5522 is scheduled for June 13th at 6:44.
44.
So this one was just scheduled for 6:45?
Yeah. Then we don't have any blank white space in between. I can adjust it by a
Like
few
we
minutes
just
if you
had.
want.
Okay, all right. I mean, we all know that it's going to take more than 1 minute. Okay.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely, that's expected.
fine,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, C-85.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests a resolution vote of support to enter into a tax increment financing agreement, TIF, with Gerard Tool Corporation located at 561 Research Drive, Leominster, Mass.
And C-85 is referred to the Chairwoman of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. President. First time on the agenda, regular course.
C-85 has been given regular course. Oh, Councilor Frida?
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. President, I'm just curious why this wasn't also referred to Economic Development Committee?
Madam Clerk, have we done this in the past? Refer this to economic,
We've usually in the past referred it to the assessor's office and economic development.
development?
Both.
Okay. Okay, sure. We can make those referrals as well.
And I would suggest that we have a representative come down with the assessor.
Okay.
Because it's, we've done this in the past, and it's, you know, it's usually good for the public to hear, because they know we're giving an incentive, but they don't see all the benefits that come with it. So it's a good idea to have that done, so we can work on that, either together, or we can have it, however we do it.
Would you like to take a vote? We can vote to have somebody represented from the assessor's office come down
If we
for
need
this.
a vote,
Yeah,
sure. I don't
we
know if we need a vote, but if
We-
you feel better with a vote, you can do a vote.
Yeah, we can take a vote to request that they come down, for someone from the assessor's office and also someone from economic development. Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr, did I see your hand?
Yes, thank you very much. We also in the past have had the mayors come down with the principals. I mean, the company that's asking for the TIF, the tax increment financing benefit, they should come down and explain to the public.
Sometimes the mayor comes, sometimes he doesn't, it depends, but I can invite him, I don't mind.
I would certainly invite the mayor, and I definitely want the company to come down and explain to the public what it is they're doing.
Sure,
Thanks.
yeah.
Okay, so we're going to have, take a vote to have a representative from the assessor's office, whether it be the assessor himself or someone in his office. And also, we have someone from economic development.
You might
as
not
well?
have her, it depends.
Okay,
She might be on medical leave.
okay. Well, if she's not available, she's not available. So, but we'll take a vote, and if they can come, that'd be great. All those in favor signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0. Madam Clerk, can you please see to it that they do their very best to get a representative here so we can have a full explanation of what is happening here?
Sure.
Is the public hearing date and time suggested?
The TIF doesn't usually have a public hearing.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to C-86, Madam Clerk.
C-86, Dane J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $338,550 to be made to the DPW Equipment Fund, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account under undesignated fund balance, regarding purchase of 2 sidewalk snowplows that will replace older failing models.
And C-86 is referred once again to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you very much. First time on the calendar, regular course, please.
And C-86 has been given regular course. Moving on to C-87.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $417,035 to be made to the data processing account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account, undesignated fund balance, regarding to replace expiring computer software for police and fire departments.
And C-87 is likewise referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. It's been brought to my attention that there was a typo when the C-87 was submitted, that the correct amount is $418,035, not $417,035. In that regard, I would ask, I would solicit a motion to amend to the proper amount.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, do we have a letter from the mayor stating that? Did he send us a letter?
I have a letter from the comptroller.
Oh, okay, all right. Because, I mean, normally we can amend something to be less, but not more, but as long as we have a letter, we should be okay.
a letter from Jen. That was just a typographical error.
Okay, all
She's
right.
here too.
She's in the audience.
Okay, perfect. As long as we have that letter, I'll entertain that motion. Mr. Chairman, you want to make that motion?
As a chair, I don't believe I have the right to make the motion, so I'm
Councilor Cormier, if
soliciting a
you-
motion.
I'll make that
Okay,
motion.
made by Councilor Cormier,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilor Angelini. Is there any discussion on that? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Not on that amendment, but I
Okay.
do have a comment following.
All right, all those in favor of amending C-87 to read $418,035 signify in usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, that has been amended.
With that being accomplished, Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that C-87 be given regular course.
Okay. All right, C-87 has been given regular course. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Thank you very much. Through the chair to the finance chair, do we have quotes for this system? Could we have copies of those, please? Thank you.
Okay, all set?
Yes.
Moving on to
Do we have copies? No. We have copies?
I don't now, but I think
The comptroller.
I think the comptroller just indicated
She'd give them to
directly
us.
that she will afford
She'll
us
provide
those.
them.
I thought we had one.
I don't have it.
Not for those. I don't have.
One side's for police and one side's for fire. So, and this is, the new system that, should carry us through the next 20 or so years.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to C-88.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $1 million be made to the stabilization fund, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account, undesignated fund balance.
C-88 is also referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Regular course, please.
And C-88 has been given regular course. Moving on to C-89.
Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $1 million be made to the capital investment fund, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account, undesignated fund balance. These funds are to be set aside for capital items, including the police station.
And C-89 is also referred to the Chairman of Finance.
Regular course, please.
And C-89 has been given regular course. Moving on to petitions, first time on the agenda. There are none to present. Moving on to matters before the City Council. The financial report, Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. We began the fiscal year on July 1st, 2021, with a balance in the stabilization account of $19,904,603. Since that time, we've added interest during the course of the fiscal year of $47,614. We also appropriated or transferred into the stabilization fund from free cash $4,700,000, leaving a balance of receipts at $24,652,216. Appropriations from the stabilization account through the fiscal year including those on the agenda for the first time this evening, total $3,843,998. And if all of those are approved, the new balance in the stabilization account will be $20,808,219. And that is the financial report.
Okay, you've heard the financial report. Are there any questions or comments? Councilor Arndt.
I have just probably a minor comment, but back on July 26, COC-02, there was a temporary appropriation to the Chapter 90 funds from the, I believe, the stabilization fund. Is that supposed to be paid back, or is that not going to just be ignored?
It's not listed as, it didn't change the balance, so apparently it was paid back. If you look at it, there's a line through it.
Oh, okay, I take that back. I didn't see that extra line, you know?
Yeah.
The comptroller is looking to speak, I
If
think.
we do want to take a
You wanna go in
recess,
recess?
if you'd like to go into recess, the comptroller can come in
I'll
and
motion
can
to
explain.
recess.
Okay, motion made by
Second.
Councilor Frida, seconded by Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr. All those in favor of going into recess, signify in usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, we're in recess. If you'd like to come in.
So we did the Chapter 90 a little different this year.
Jen, could you put your microphone on, please? I'm sorry.
It says it's,
Tap it.
better?
Yes.
Yes.
So Chapter 90, we did a little differently this year. We accepted the FY23 portion, which we will start spending in July. They still had the leftover money from last year, which they will use in this year with the addition of the money that the mayor has appropriated, so they should be good through the summer. So we didn't actually have to borrow the money from stabilization this year.
Okay.
So it's just a little bit different than prior years.
Okay, so
Yep.
the money was never taken out, really? It was just never borrowed?
No, right, and when it came down, it was just the acceptance of the grant for
Okay.
FY23.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jen.
I was going to say, did you have another question that you wanted
I do.
to ask?
Go
Is
ahead.
that okay if I, yeah, because we're in recess. C-89, which
Yes.
is the request and appropriation of $1 million be made to the Capital Investment Fund, seem to be transferred from excess and deficiency undesignated fund balance. Do we have a capital investment fund?
Yes.
Or is this new?
Nope, it's always been there.
Okay.
So, and I'm putting that aside because, we're, hopefully that will get transferred to the police department. So we'll see how much at the end of the year and the benefits of bonding the whole amount, putting this towards it. Maybe we'll just be able to take out a band depending on where the costs come in at the end. So just trying to be, financially secure when we go forward.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Could we have a copy of that?
Sure.
Like an up-to-date copy, because I don't think I've ever seen anything called a capital investment fund, any
Yep.
kind of detail on that. That would be great, thank you. I have one other question. There is an appropriation for $450,000 for the street resurfacing expense account and $550,000 to the sidewalk expense account from excess and deficiency. And do we have, so that money is going into another pot of money with ARPA funds and other kinds of federal dollars. It's over $3 million, like 3.6, I think, for sidewalks and streets.
Yes.
Right.
It stays in its own line item, but yes.
But
Yep.
the total pot. So do we have, in order to go out to bid, right, we have to go out to bid in order to spend this money. Do we have a list of the streets and sidewalks that are getting, or that are proposed to be covered with this funding?
From what I've been told, the street list was expanded with the new funds, and if this is passed this evening. So they are waiting for National Grid and Verizon to approve the new street list to say that the roads that are on that will not be dug up in the near future. So I don't have a list.
Okay.
But I think that it's, if this passes, then, they would have
It should
something that they're
exist, right?
waiting for approval.
And the sidewalks as well?
They're expecting to have that list from Verizon or the approval by the next meeting. We should
Great.
have it by then.
Okay, all right, that's great, thank you. Thank you. Yep.
All set? Are there any other questions before we go back into session? Seeing none, thank you very much, Jen. We are now back in session. Are there any more questions or comments on the financial report? Seeing none, we will move right into items under finance, beginning with C-75. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
Sure. C-75, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request an appropriation of $37,000 be made to the snow and ice expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the snow and ice overtime account. This is regarding equipment repairs and restocking of consumables. At the subcommittee meeting held last Thursday, the Finance Committee voted unanimously to recommend granting C-75 to the C-75. And as indicated, this is transferring from one snow and ice line item to the other, some excess money to purchase some equipment and restock some of the consumables used during the year. And that is C-75.
Okay. So you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-75. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-75 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-75 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
I do. Order that the sum of $37,000 be appropriated to the snow and ice expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the snow and ice overtime account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yay.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-75 has been adopted. Moving on to C-76.
C-76, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request an appropriation of $900,000 be made to the school transportation expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. In the subcommittee meeting, the Finance Committee voted unanimously to recommend granting C-76. We've done this pretty much every year. This is the last piece of the school transportation for the fiscal year that needs to be made, and there we go.
Okay, so C-76 has been given a unanimous recommendation by the Finance Committee to grant. Is there any comments or questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-76 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-76 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
I do. Order that the sum of $900,000 be appropriated to the school transportation expense account, same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yay.
Yay.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-76 has been adopted. C-77.
C-77, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests an appropriation of $450,000 be made to the street resurfacing expense account and $550,000 be made to the sidewalk expense account, same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. This is part of the city's program to street resurface and repair and extend sidewalks. As the comptroller said during recess and as we discovered during my subcommittee meeting, the final list is still subject to the public utilities weighing in as to their planned work, so we don't end up paving or constructing sidewalks in places that will have to be disrupted by the public utilities. At the subcommittee meeting, the Finance Committee voted unanimously to grant C-77.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-77. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-77 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-77 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President. Ordered that the sum of $450,000 be appropriated to the street resurfacing expense account and $550,000 be appropriated to the sidewalk expense account. Same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor of adopting the order signify by saying yea.
Yay.
Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, C-77 has been adopted. On C-78, I do have to abstain because this involves fire department overtime, and I do have a family member on the fire department. So I am going to throw the chair to the Vice President to handle this, and if there is no objection, since I also have to abstain from 55-22, which is a public service petition that involves my employer, I will need to abstain from that as well. So while the Vice President has the chair, I would ask her if there's no objection to handle both of those items, and then I will come back and we will continue on with the rest of the agenda. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
C-78, Mr. Chairman of Finance.
C-78, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request an appropriation of $250,000 to be made to the Fire Department overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. This is a pretty standard procedure down here, as we know. A lot of the overtime for the fire department is generated by the ambulance, and monies come into general revenues and then have to be appropriated out to satisfy the overtime needs of the fire department. At our subcommittee meeting last Thursday, the Finance Committee recommended unanimously to grant C-78.
You have heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-78. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-78, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed? By a vote of 8-0, C-78 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Ordered that the sum of $250,000 be appropriated to the fire department overtime account, the same amount to be transferred from the excess and deficiency account. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request for the adoption of the order. All those in favor, please respond by saying yay.
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 Those opposed? By a vote of 8-0, C-78 has been adopted. And we are going to go over to 55-22, and I'll send that to the Chair of Public Service through Shalafo Zephyr.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Do I have to read this in? Do I have to read?
No, you can summarize it.
Okay, good. All right, 5522 is a petition submitted by Verizon New England to replace a pole on Merriam Avenue. We had a public hearing earlier this evening with several neighbors who attended that are impacted by this. There are lots of questions. The Verizon representative did not show up, so we still have a list of questions that need to be answered. So at this point, after listening to the neighbors, kind of consolidating our own questions, my recommendation at this point, Madam Chair, would be to give this further time. And I would go to my committee. Council Frida?
I agree.
Okay, Council Brady?
I agree.
Okay. And then we are going to contact the Verizon person. I have a list of things. Should we do this now, or should we do this under old business? The things that...
You can establish it now.
Okay, so the things to establish, we need to have the Verizon representative come to our next meeting. The next public hearing is on June 13th at 6:45. We also need to ask...
6:44.
6:44, excuse me, 6:44. We also have to ask, we need a new plan reflecting existing conditions. We need the exact marking of the proposed pole location, clearly marked on Merriam Avenue. We need to know what is the cost and who is going to pay for it. We need an update, I would like an update on the condition of the pole located at 660 Merriam Avenue, which is Mr. Frederelli, one of the abutters, referenced that. And the reason it's relevant is because it's directly across from where they want to put this other pole, and the two have been tied together and may be as part of this proposal. And then also a question for Verizon, a general question, is why not install underground cables? Because this isn't crossing Merriam Avenue. This is really going from one part to the corner, down Merriam Avenue to this other location. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, you have all those requests for discovery, correct?
I'll just read it back just to make sure.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that Verizon comes to the next meeting. I will reach out to them again and invite them.
Yep.
We'd like a new plan that shows the actual, how it is right now. We would like an exact marking of the proposed location on Merriam Ave. We'd like to know the cost and who's paying for it, an update on the condition of the pole at 660 Merriam Ave, because they're directly tied together. And as a general question, why not install underground cables?
Perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry?
Sorry.
Councilor.
We never got a referral back from DPW because they didn't get a plan, so maybe we put that into the ask also.
Yeah, I reminded DPW today, and they had reached out to let us know they still haven't heard, so we will keep poking.
Okay, so if we have all that, then we have heard the unanimous recommendation of the Public Service Committee to leave the public
hearing open.
and to continue that till June 13th, 2022, and to grant 55-22 further time. Is there any further discussion? Yes.
Any thought through the president to the chair of a subcommittee meeting on this?
We can think about that. Let's,
Okay, just a thought.
what time does the meeting start on the 13th, Madam Clerk?
6:44 PM?
Oh, it starts at 6:44? We could possibly schedule a subcommittee meeting at 6:15, or even 6 o'clock.
Sure, just let me
Okay,
know.
we can do that under old business, I guess,
Yep.
right? Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, just to summarize again, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Public Services Committee to continue this hearing till June 13th, 2022 at 6:44 PM. All those in favor, please signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, that will so be scheduled. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you very much. Moving on to continuing with items under Finance, C-79. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
I am. C-79, Jean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the fiscal year 2023 budget, which totals $150,624,467 be adopted. $150,416,047 to be raised by fiscal year 2023 revenues, $133,000 to be transferred from the Gallagher Building Special Revenue Fund, and $75,420 to be transferred from the Cemetery Trust Fund. We had a subcommittee meeting, or subcommittee meetings last week. We had a public hearing this evening. This is one of the most pleasant budget processes I think I've ever been involved in. It would be, Mr. President, my suggestion to grant C-79. I'd ask you to poll my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier
I am in favor.
and Councilor Angelini.
I'd be very comfortable in taking the same position.
Okay. So it looks like we have a unanimous recommendation from the Finance Committee to grant C-79. I will say from the outset that I will be abstaining from all items on the fire department that include salary, wages, and benefits, as I do have a brother that serves on the fire department. I will also be abstaining from all disability commission line items, as I do serve on the commission and I am the treasurer of the commission, so I cannot have both hats on. But I will be voting on the budget as a whole, and as I said, abstaining from those items. Is there any discussion or any other abstentions that anybody would like to state at this time? Councilor Deakin?
Mr. President, I'll be abstaining from any and all school issues, as
Okay.
my wife is the superintendent of schools.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other discussion or disclosures or abstentions that anybody, any issues that anybody has with C-79? Councilor Frida, did I see your
Yeah,
hand?
I just had not really a question, more of a statement.
Sure.
I
The
just,
floor is
we
yours.
say this every year, and I think it's important to note that this budget, and I agree with it, we're raising it 2.5%. This is what sets the tax rate.
Yep.
I don't think people realize that the taxes are based on our budget, what we vote on our budget. People come in November and always have a comment about my taxes are being raised. This is what the city has to raise in taxes to support this budget. And that's just important for the public to know that this is it. We had a public hearing tonight. That was the opportunity for people to speak to it, for or against, liking things the way they are, being supportive, having questions. Tonight was the night it should have happened. So I just think it's important to remind the public that this vote is what's going to set the tax rate in November.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Bonanza?
Yeah, I think that's largely true, and it's a good point that the Councilor at Large is making. There are a couple other footnotes as well. New growth enters into the equation, as well as the final aid that we get from the state. As you know, the school budget is in part set on expected state aid, which is not finalized yet, but that will have some impact on the budget. But the Council at Large is right. I mean, this is spending that we're setting for the fiscal year, and will have a huge impact on what the ultimate tax rate is. So if the public wants to participate, now's the time to do it. Of course, a little late at this point, but.
Okay. Is there any, Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is the first budget in a long time. I actually can't remember the last one that I voted for, that I supported. I mean, and most of my objections really had to do with the way that the city was funding the public schools. That was always my beef, is that I think because of our demographics, because of our population, I think we needed to do better. This year, fortunately, with the Student Opportunity Act, and I want to give a shout out to Representative Higgins, because I know that she worked very, very closely with the school department, with the school administration, to make sure that the formula was changed so that gateway communities like Leominster have a better way of funding. The formula's been changed so that our students and the difficulties educating our students, which include English language learners, lower income folks, lower or higher unemployment rates, that's all part of us being Gateway City. The state finally has recognized that and changed the formula so it's more equitable, so that our kids are going to get the proper funding, and I think we heard that loud and clear from the superintendent when she was down here. So with that said, I'm very comfortable, very happy with the way that the school department in particular, that budget turned out, and very happy and very appreciative of our new comptroller's information and your willingness to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Arndinger?
Just a comment, please. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend budget hearings, but I watched them on TV, and I have never seen, on my short time on the council, a budget hearing that went so well. The questions that you guys asked were very succinct and poignant, so it was really nice to hear that. You congratulated the presenters, but you also deserve congratulations because you did a great job, and thank you very much for that. And I want to echo Councilor Zephyr's comments on the Chapter 70 funding. That has always been a bone of contention with me, and the schools are not getting the proper funding, and it seems like this time they're going to get the proper funding. So thank you all for doing a good job.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to do this in a roll call vote. And I'd be willing to bet we've never done this in May.
Have never.
I am curious, and I'm going to look back in the minutes, but of old city records, but I don't think we've ever passed a budget this early. So
Never.
I know I'm not supposed to enter into debate, but I just want to say kudos to our new comptroller and giving us the opportunity to have plenty of time to debate this budget, although it's an easy one, but we would have had plenty of time if we weren't ready this evening, and we appreciate that. So I'm going to do this in a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Bonanza.
Yay.
Councilor Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Brady.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Deacon.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
I am a yay. By a vote of 9-0, C-79 has been granted. Moving on to C.
water.
There's no water on this,
There's
is
no
there?
water,
No, I wouldn't think so. Moving on to C-80. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
Yes, C80, Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr, I think, is signaling her abstention.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
as customary, you do abstain every year from the water department budget, so your abstention is so noted.
And also for
And
the
also
sewer budget, so I'll just do that
On
once.
C-81, we'll
Thank
make
you.
that clear now. Thank you very much. Counselor, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, C80, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests a total appropriation of $6,499,451 be made to the fiscal 2023 Water Department budget. Same amount to be raised / offset by fiscal year 2023 receipts, as authorized by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E. Mr. President, we had a budget hearing on this last week, as well as a public hearing this evening. It would be my position to grant C-80 and ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
And Councilor Angelini.
I will make it unanimous, Mr. President.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-80. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-80 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, C-80 has been granted. C-81.
C-81, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, request a total appropriation of $6,538,048 be made to the fiscal year 2023 Sewer Department budget. The same amount to be raised/offset by fiscal year 2023 receipts as authorized by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E. Again, we had a subcommittee meeting hearing last week, as well as a public hearing this evening. Mr. President, it'd be my position to grant C-81. I'd ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Cormier.
I agree.
And Councilor Angelini.
I'm in agreement as well, Mr. President.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-81. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-81 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 8-0, C-81 has also been granted. Moving on to items under legal affairs, 20-22. Mr. Chairman, are you ready to report?
I am indeed, Mr. President. 2022 is Elizabeth Wood on behalf of the Planning Board, request to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to the parking of unregistered vehicles. We had a public hearing earlier this evening. It was closed. I read a letter into the record from the Planning Board explaining that they were still in subcommittee, and it sounded like there'd be some time before they drew a conclusion and voted that any changes and sent that back down to the council. So my recommendation would be to table 20-22, and I would ask you to poll members of my committee.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bedanza.
I'm in favor of table.
Councilor Cormier.
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to table 20-22. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of tabling 20-22 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 20-22 has been tabled. Moving on to 48-22.
1 second, Mr. President. 48-22, Peter Angelini, Ward 5 Councilor, request to amend the City of Leominster's revised ordinances, Section 12-2, as attached. This amendment is proposed to take effect July 1, 2022. Mr. President, we had, let's see, this public hearing, I might add. First public hearing was on April 11th. We had another public hearing on the 9th of May. I'm sorry, the 25th of April as well, the 9th of May, and of course tonight. I know there's a couple of minor housekeeping matters that need to be done to buff this up a little bit. But other than that, personally, I don't see the need for a subcommittee meeting on this, but I'd like to check with members of my committee and see if I get their feelings on the matter.
Okay. Councilor Bedanza.
So I note from the legislative history, we have a public hearing scheduled on this, Madam Clerk, on June 13th. So it looks like I would suspect that we have to conduct that before we can make any more legislative progress with this.
I'm so sorry. I missed that. 13th. So in that case, it makes it easy. I'll recommend further time.
Okay. So I just have one question too. We had proposed that this would go in effect July 1st, 2022. Obviously, that's not going to be able to happen because this is not going to be passed, read twice, and signed into law. So, Madam Clerk, is there going to be an issue with, because it was advertised that way, can we amend that at some point when we're ready? to a date beyond that, or is this going to create a problem?
I think we can amend it.
We can amend it.
Yeah, we can amend it. So at some point, we'll amend this maybe to, October 1st or something.
Take effect upon passage.
Right, or take effect upon passage, something of that nature, but we're going to have to keep that in mind as well. So, Councilor Cormier, you're the third member of Legal Affairs. Do you need to weigh in as well?
No,
You good?
for the time,
For the
we have a
time.
public hearing scheduled. That's
Okay.
fine.
All right, so all those in favor of giving 40, is there any, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to give 48-22 further time. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of giving 48-22 further time signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 48-22 has been given further time. Moving on to item, we already took care of that one. Moving on to items under Ways and Means, 53-22, Madam Chairwoman, are you ready to report?
I am, Mr. President. 53-22, Nellie Molina, on behalf of J&J Consignment, requests to renew license to deal shorthand articles at 285 Central Street. We have our referrals in. This J&J Consignment is in good standing with both the city, the treasurer and tax collector, and the police department. All documents have been provided. So it would be my recommendation to renew the license, and I'd ask you to poll the members of my committee.
Okay, Councilor Arndinger?
I agree.
Councilor Deacon?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant 53-22. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 53-22 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 53-22 has been granted. Moving on to 54-22.
Thank you, Mr. President. 54-22, Paul Rulo, on behalf of Protect Solutions, requests to renew license to deal secondhand articles at 345 Central Street. Again, we have our completed application and our letters of good standing. It would be my recommendation that we renew this license, and I'd ask you to poll the members of my committee.
Councilor Arndinger?
I agree.
Councilor Deacon?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant 54-22. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 54-22 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 54-22 has been granted. Moving on to 56-22.
Thank you, Mr. President. 56-22, Mason Investments Incorporated, renew bowling alley licenses for Mason Bowling Center located at 640 North Main Street. I don't, some of the councilors may have received the earlier packet where everything wasn't updated. I've been assured that the letters of good standing by both the treasurer and the police department have been submitted, and the application is complete. So it would be my recommendation to renew the license, and I'd ask you to poll the members of my committee.
Councilor Arndinger?
I agree.
Councilor Deacon?
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Ways and Means Committee to grant 56-22. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 56-22 signify in the usual manner. Those opposed, by a vote of 9-0, 56-22 has been granted. Moving on to items under new business, we have one first reading of an ordinance, which is formally petition 49-22. Is the chairman of Legal Affairs ready to report?
I am indeed, Mr. President. Thank you. It was brought to my attention that this was sent back from City Solicitor's Office. And it is indeed first reading of an ordinance. Elizabeth Wood, on behalf of the Planning Board, requests to amend the zoning ordinance pertaining to the solar ordinance. Article 3, Table of Uses, Section 22-104 of zoning, per attached letter. Now, I know I don't have to read this whole thing, but in summary, it just it gives the planning board, obviously, special permit authority, spells out either if it's a special permit of the planning board or site plan approval, whatever may be needed in particular cases, something that the planning board told us they would need to sort of control this activity in the future. So I would recommend that we adopt the first reading of this ordinance. Struggling this evening, and I would ask you to check with, excuse me.
I just wanted to remind you about Brian Riley's opinion about the numbering.
Yeah, yes, that's a good point. I actually had that in the last one, that's why I confused my notes on that other one.
No worries.
So actually, we want to amend this at the very end of this document to add the language that Brian Riley recommended. It says, allow the city to renumber, but this does for the chart. Renumber the chart.
To renumber the ordinance as needed, because when he goes to put these in after they've been written, Elizabeth has been finding out that they don't actually correlate anymore with her zoning, and the AG's office doesn't allow us just to renumber it off of a whim. It has to have a caveat in the language to do it. So the new thing that's been recommended each time we do that is every time we go in for any ordinance is to put just underneath and renumber as needed, so it makes sense and it doesn't look funny.
So, Mr. President, I would think I would need someone other than myself to make that motion to amend.
Sure. Would somebody like to make a motion that we add?
I'll move to authorize the renumbering as suggested by the city solicitor's office.
Okay, Councilor Bedanza and Councilor Cormier, I saw your hand as well for a second. Is there any discussion on the motion and the second to renumber this as needed? If not, all those in favor signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0. This has been amended. Mr. Chairman, I will officially throw this back to you as an amended first reading and ask you to make one more recommendation.
My recommendation would be to adopt the first reading of this ordinance as amended.
As amended. Perfect.
And I would ask you to check with members of my committee as well.
Okay. Councilor Bedanza.
I'm in favor.
And Councilor Cormier.
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to adopt the first reading of this ordinance as amended. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to have to do this in a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Bedanza.
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arndinger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Brady.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo-Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Deacon.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I will be recorded as yay by a vote of 9-0. The first reading of this ordinance as amended has been adopted. Moving on to, first of all, do we have any other new business before we move on to old? Seeing none, moving on to old business, we have one second reading of an ordinance which is formally petition C-69. Is the chairman ready to report?
He is indeed, Mr. President. Thank you. This is the second reading of an ordinance, C-69. Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the following sections of the City of Leominster Revised Ordinance, Chapter 16, Personnel, Article 2, Personnel, Wage and Salary Plan, Division 3, Classification Plan, Section 16 through 34-34, Classification of Positions be amended, effective immediately, to replace the existing classification with the new classification plan presented below. And that would be Assistant Purchasing Agent, the class title. The classification is S5, and inserting in their place the following: class title, Assistant Purchasing Agent, classification S7. And Mr. President, I would recommend, well, first let me just read the NEA 2022, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows: Chapter 16, Section 1630 through 34 of the revised ordinance entitled Classification of Positions hereby amended by deleting the classifications for the following position, and again, to be Assistant Purchasing Agent S5, and inserting in its place Assistant Purchasing Agent classification S7. My recommendation would be to adopt the second reading of the ordinance.
Okay.
And I would ask you to poll members of my committee as well.
Councilor Patanza.
I'm in favor.
Councilor Cormier.
I agree.
Okay, you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to adopt the second reading of this ordinance. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those, I will do this in a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Patanza.
Yay?
Councilor Cormier.
Yay.
Councilor Arnger.
Yay.
Councilor Angelini.
Yay.
Councilor Brady.
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yay.
Councilor Deacon.
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
Yay.
And I will be recorded as yay by a vote of 9-0. C-69's second reading has been adopted. Is there any other old business? Councilor Shalfo Zephyr, I saw your hand first.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, I would like to schedule a public service subcommittee meeting for Monday, June 13th at 6:15 PM. And the only thing on the agenda would be petition 5522.
Do you think the half hour should be enough if the nice abutters come back and want to talk to Verizon? Because then we'll have to start as a whole sharp at 6:44. I just don't want to, maybe 6?
Bump up, okay. All right, 6
Yeah,
PM.
just in case.
6 PM. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be scheduled, Madam Clerk. All right, is there any other old business? Councilor Frida, I saw your hand as well.
Yeah, I've asked a number of times since last year to have the city solicitor come in and update us on legal issues. Are we getting anywhere with that? And then I think we need to ask, I think the counselor across from me suggested last time we not pay them till they come in, but,
I didn't say that.
you know, that,
I've emailed him and asked.
It's a good
but
theory.
He hasn't given me any dates and times that he's available.
I think withhold the check was what you said.
We don't write them.
I have tried. I can try some more. I can
Well,
continue to bother
we
him
need to
every day.
contact the mayor then. We need to have a discussion as to what our liability is in the city.
I can reach out to the mayor's office to see if they can get a better response than I have. I don't mind.
I mean, that's what, the charter said they're supposed to respond to us. If we call them in.
Yep.
And that's not like them not to do that.
I know.
Used to be one of my favorite things to do when I was city solicitor. I really enjoyed doing that. I don't know what the problem is.
I can,
If you can want to give them one more check.
yeah, I will nail
Clerk.
Brian down to get him in here.
Okay. Is there any, Councilor Brady?
And just one thing, a couple of constituent calls. It is on Route 13, and I know it's a state road, but there's a lot of traffic stopping to enter into the Dunkin' Donuts, blocking one of the lanes, and there's also been Amazon deliveries to the nursing home right there that literally stop on 13. Can we petition the state to put up, no parking on state highway or some type of thing like that?
Open meeting law, first of all.
What's that?
Open meeting law, first of all.
Yeah.
I can get you a contact to start with from MassDOT. I don't think we're able to put signs up on property that's
I know
that's
we
highway.
can't do it, but I
Yeah.
didn't know, can we send a letter?
Because it's-
Because I believe the mayor's on the board of DOT, right?
He is, yeah. I
Maybe
can,
we know someone.
I can find out and I can get you a contact for MassDOT for that.
That'd be great, thank
Sure.
you.
Okay. Is there anything else to come under old business? Councilor Cormier?
No, sorry, I was, jumped ahead to community calendar.
Oh, okay. If we're all done with old business, then we'll move on to community calendar. Councilor Cormier?
I just wanted to give a shout out to the men and women at the DPW. I took part in the recycling day that they had. It was, I was a little worried. It was, traffic was down the block and around the corner. But I got there at 9:30 and I was out by before 11:15. So even though there was a lot of cars, and I think they reported over 450 cars and trucks went through, it did move really quickly. I was able to get rid of a lot of electronics. A lot of people used it, so I just wanted to give a shout out to them. And knock on wood, at that time of the morning, the heat hadn't hit yet, so they were still in good shape when I saw them. But I want to recognize them. That was a great effort, and it's a great way to help the city. And I hear a lot of people that complain about trash being dumped off at the end of the yards, at the end of dead-end streets. because people don't want to pay to recycle. Well, this was for the most part, it was free. Some big electronics was a very reasonable fee, but it helps the city, and it was a great experience, and I look forward to collecting my junk for the next few. So.
Okay, very good. Is there anything else on the community calendar? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Councilor Shalfo Zephyr. Do I have a second, or does everybody want to stay a little longer? Councilor Brady? All right, all those in favor of adjourning signify in the usual manner. Those opposed by a vote of 9-0, we are adjourned.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.